What's up, everybody? This is Dr. Nick with Leverage Media, and welcome to another episode of Path to a Million podcast. I've got a good buddy of mine on the call today, Dr. Cory Frogley with BlueIQ, and his practice, which I can never remember the name of, but but he is one of us, and he is one of my favorite people in the profession because he is just one of the smartest dudes. He is an action taker. He loves marketing as much as I do. And Cory, for those that do not know you, please introduce yourself to the listeners.
Thank you, Nick. Yeah, man, I bleed chiropractic, brother. I grew up on the footsteps of Palmer College with my father being the executive vice president to 𝗵𝗿𝗰𝗴, right? So nice. Some of you out there listening know the Frogley name because my dad was a freaking legend. I mean, I remember going to Chicago on vacations with good old Clay Thompson and just rubbing shoulders with so many of our early pioneers that just opened up the profession. But what I struggled with growing up in this profession was this shame, like, oh, you're a chiropractor or you're a chiropractor's son. Right. And I don't know, I think that shaped me to really want to dedicate my life to helping chiropractors become so profitable that this is a profession that is so desired. Now, believe me, adjusting the atlas and changing lives and all of those things are part of my passion. I just decided, hey, let's get the data that proves what we do and show doctors how to be successful on all models, right? No more jar on the wall. Pay me what you feel like you should pay me. Like, yeah, we bring the value. Let's get paid for our value.
Absolutely. So for the people that don't know, and we'll get more into BlueIQ specifically, but just give kind of a 30-second explanation of what exactly that is.
Yeah, I think by the end of this podcast, man, I'm gonna share with you the 3 secrets of how a chiropractor can build a 7-figure practice and beyond. Yeah. We have analyzed the profession like crazy through the data. We've worked with over 1,000 practices now, well over 1,000 practices now. And just taken those pieces and figured out the perfect roadmap to help these practices get to where they want to go. So that's what we're going to share with you today.
Nice. Well, I'm a fanboy of BlueIQ, so I'm sure that, or maybe I'm a fangirl, I don't know, but I will be excited to talk about when we dive into what exactly it does.
It's cool stuff.
So first things first. We're gonna in a little bit. We're gonna talk about because you have so much access to kind of gross data for lots of practices. I feel like that you're in a unique position to kind of share with practices that are, they have their own individual situations. Some people are closed and are at 0. Other people are only down 10 or 20%. Others are somewhere in the middle. But where the profession is as a whole. But I also I love the way that your mind thinks, and I know that you're making plans for when things get back to normal. So what do you think, what are the 3 things that chiropractors should be focusing on right now? And then what do you see kind of happening over the next couple of months? What's your foresight down the road?
Yeah, thank you. We do have a very unique perspective to be able to look at a pretty good snippet of our profession and see what's happened. There has been a major impact, and I'm excited to get into those numbers because it's pretty daunting. Yeah. However, this isn't our first crisis, right? You and I have lived through a financial meltdown, 2 of them since I've been in practice, right? Yeah. And I don't know, I've been super blessed to come out of every one of them on the upside. And so we've been working with our BlueIQ Nation on the COVID recovery plan. And this is something that I teach even when life is crazy. Like we had our summit, our practice transformation summit earlier in March, luckily right before the COVID crisis. And the reoccurring thing that just kept coming out of my mouth to these docs was you have to slow down to speed up. Mm-hmm. And your services are a perfect example of this, Nick, because when people have crappy marketing and they just keep pushing crappy marketing out there, you're going to get crappy leads. Right. But when you really slow down and with your amazing services, build the story, build the value of what sells, and then you put the effort behind that, it's game changing. And that rings true for your team. It rings true for your office policies. It rings true for your marketing systems. you've got to slow down to speed up. So what a gift we've been given with this COVID crisis to slow down for a second, to actually have permission. We never give ourselves permission because we're so busy serving the patient that we never really get to build a practice of our dreams.
Yeah.
Because it picks up momentum on us. We actually get run over by our own momentum. And we're just, it's frustrating. And it was, unfortunately, was one day when I was in practice, when I got to the end of a Friday, Nick, and I was, you know, a pretty high volume practice, higher than the average chiropractor out there. And I had been pushing hard for a long time. And I remember I finished my last patient on a Friday afternoon, and I literally was exhausted. I laid down on my own table to recover for a minute before doing my chart notes.
Mm-hmm.
3 of my employees came up to me, and I had, I think at that time, 17. I had 3 of my employees come up to me and say, "Oh, Dr. Frogley, finally an opening. Can we get adjusted?" And I said, "No, I need a break." And in that moment, I saw the look on their faces.
Yeah.
You're talking to a guy that never turns people away. I'm like, I will serve you till I roll over and die.
Mm-hmm.
But I was burnt out, Nick.
Yeah.
I was so exhausted building something that I thought was my dream practice. And I had lost focus in profitability versus impact versus balance.
Yeah.
And I wanted balance. I wanted meaning. I wanted purpose and impact, but I still wanted to be profitable. And so as they walked away from me, my heart just broke and wrenched that I couldn't believe that came out of my mouth. I turned them away. And in that moment, I decided I'm building something different. I'm building something better. But when I went out there to find the tools and the resources and the training and all of that, it just wasn't available. Yeah. And so that kind of led on the journey to building BlueIQ.
Yeah. Well, I love BlueIQ because in the marketing world, they're really good at building products, and they're really good at selling me into buying all the products. To my girlfriend's chagrin. But for BlueIQ, I always wondered why there wasn't a great data dashboard for chiropractic, and why wasn't it easy? Like I have ChiroTouch. It's not easy to do all those calculations. You have to pull all these different reports, and I'm like, why is there not a way to just be able to set up a dashboard and then it's done? Because I have that for our clients. I have that for marketing, I never had that for chiropractic. So that was like, I use BlueIQ not only for my office, but for Leverage Media, just because I love using it. Even though there's other data dashboards out there, I have to use ChiroTouch for Leverage Media to be able to use BlueIQ. But it's like it's worth it, because I'm like, A, I know how to use that, and B, it like gives me the data that I need. Yeah. But what is it that when you were creating BlueIQ, because I'm always interested in like people that were chiropractors and then they kind of have like a vision of something else, because that's what happened with me was I had the exact same situation where I was the subluxation in my practice. I was the reason why we weren't growing, because I was just burnt out. And I was burnt out with like 3 employees and like seeing 75 people a week. I just got burnt out easily on it. But I realized early on that if I didn't get out of seeing the patients, that this thing was never going to grow. So that was the first step. But then the second step was when I realized how powerful content marketing could be, and that what chiropractors needed was somebody to do it for them, not teach them how to do it, because they just never get it done. That's when Leverage Media kind of came to fruition. What was that like when because there's a lot of chiropractors, I think, that listen to this, that they have a dream, they've got an idea, but they don't know how to get out of practice. What was that like, that transition from getting out of practice and working on BlueIQ?
That's a great question. And I love your story, by the way. And this is why you guys are a certified BlueIQ marketing agency. Like you get it. You get what these doctors need, and better yet, you actually produce the product that they need. Right. And we could do a whole podcast on that. Yeah. And so that question came from the question you're asking. It actually was discovered on a journey that my wife and I were going through. We were out there saying, you know, we present this data to doctors and they look at it and they really don't get that excited about it because they say, well, okay, you're showing me my data sucks, like my practice sucks. What do I do about it?
I already knew that part. Yeah.
Yeah, great. You just showed me what I already knew.
Yeah.
And so we had to figure out this, how do we make the data meaningful? How do we make it actionable? And I think that's the secret and the difference between, like, we unlock your ChiroTouch data or soon to be these other patient management systems out there,
yeah,
and turn your data into doing. Well, to get back to your question, there's a journey that a provider goes through. And this, what I discovered, this isn't just in chiropractic, this is actually in any provider, because we're such givers to our patients. And so we come out of school as an associate, a lot of us, and I don't care if you open your practice right out of school, you're still kind of an associate, because an associate is learning, they're perfecting their clinical skills. Those first 2 years, you need to get as much clinical experience as you possibly can, so that you can start having some success with patients. And even me, who grew up in a chiropractic family, it still took me about 2.5 years before I just had the confidence to handle pretty much any case that was walking in through the door.
Yeah.
And so that associate then moves to what we call a promoter. A promoter, as you know, is somebody who starts to learn how to tell their story, starts to have to market because they need patients. They're just getting started. And then from a promoter, you get busy enough that all of a sudden you start losing employees because they're not happy there. And patients start having bad experiences. And they start saying comments to you like, you know, it just doesn't feel as good here anymore. Why are you churning through employees? What's going on here?
Yeah.
Well, because you don't have systems in place. And in our profession, we talk a lot about systems, but who really has great systems that all the systems work together, like cohesively? And we wanted to solve that problem, but you eventually move from a promoter to an operator. An operator operates on systems so that it's not as much energy, it flows and things are smooth and it's easy to train a new employee on a system and it's replicatable. From that level, I see so many of our brothers and sisters out there get stuck there.
Yep.
They hire an associate and they don't make any more money.
Yep.
They hire an associate and they don't get any more busy. All they do is transfer patients to the associate and they work a little less, they buy a little bit of time back, but they didn't crack the nut that they set out to crack, which was make more money and have an associate.
Yep.
Nick, we cracked that nut and we call it the leadership step. You move from an operator to a leader. You start to learn how to build what we call the provider value ladder. So that when you hire a provider, you actually have set benchmarks that they have to go through to get to that place. And then we go on from there. We actually, because some of our biggest brands are running and operating over 60 locations.
Wow.
So with those systems in place, you become a high performer, you become an expander. And again, my greatest mission is to give back to this profession and bring chiropractic truly in the healthcare spotlight.
Yeah.
Show it what it can do through the data, not through a testimony, not through, like, support the research that's out there. And I've seen some pretty cool research being circulated, especially through this COVID time. So when these doctors connected with that emotional journey and they read that document, they actually downloaded it from our website. They're like, holy cow. It's like, Cory, you were in my head because I'm experiencing those emotions as I've gone through this process.
Yeah.
And so the cool thing about this, Nick, is we've just taken those processes and put them into a software and help you see the data. And then here is the most important things you should be doing every day if you're a front desk team member.
Yeah.
If you're a case manager, here's the most important things you should be doing. If you're a billing manager, these are the most important things you're doing. And we automate those things and serve them up to them in a dashboard. We give the doctor their practice numbers on their phone and different things. And then we have, you know, training systems. And again, because we're not a marketing agency, we partner with an agency like you who really can perform and say, okay, have your trusted network plug into these systems to help you run the optimal system. But more importantly, teach you as the practice owner, what should you be measuring? Like, what are the success markers if I'm going to work with a marketing agency? How do I hold them accountable? How do they deliver for me the golden metric of new patient acquisition cost that begins to come down? Quality of new leads come up. how do we measure that? And how do we make better decisions in the data? So that's the journey. That's what we do.
Yeah. So you mentioned the I can't remember what you called, like the COVID recovery plan, maybe, is that right?
Yeah.
Talk me through what's in that. What are you thinking that offices really need to be concerned with and focused on right now?
Yeah. So when we look at these numbers, Nick, just looking at office visits alone, from February to March, we had a 20% drop just in that month.
Yeah.
And mostly at the end of the month, because that's when COVID really started to come on board. But
Sure.
April, across the board, we have had a 60% impact on average.
Wow.
Some people are lower than that, some people are a little bit less than that, but it's a 60% impact. So how do we recover from the 60% impact? Well, I hope and pray that our brothers and sisters out there have gotten their, their payroll protection plans. They've unlocked some of that money.
Cory, they've been listening to this podcast. They have gotten their money.
I know, because I've heard you talking about it. So, and if they have, then that's actually a game changer, because here you have an opportunity right now, today. And if you're listening to this on a recording after we've already recovered, dang it, you missed out on this opportunity, but we still have another beautiful opportunity for you. But this is the chance that you have the chance to slow down with your team, paid for by the government,
yeah,
where you can now really put together the roadmap to success. And the way we do that is, as BlueIQ has a special offer that's called a profitability blueprint, where we connect into your data, we upload it into our completely HIPAA compliant cloud. It runs, it crunches those numbers, thousands of lines of numbers in your database. And what it does is it runs it through a formula to show you, here's where you were prior to COVID.
Yeah.
Here's where your strong systems, here are the systems that you're struggling with.
Yeah.
Here are the success markers of those systems. Here's the team member that should be driving that. And here's the new data for that team member to take action on. And then here's your 6 and 12-month roadmap to not only coming out of COVID recovered,
yeah,
but better than you were prior to COVID, because this blueprint's going to give you the step-by-step process to get there.
Nice. So, because every office is different, everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses. So this is really a custom plan for that individual practice. What are you seeing when you look at the offices that are maybe only down 20% versus the offices that are maybe down 60, 70, 80%? What is it that you see the differences between those offices that are thriving? And let's just assume that they're not in like the hot spot of the hot spots,
Yeah,
and it's like,
yeah.
and it's more about just the practice in general versus the city that they live in.
Well, and again, because I'm talking to these doctors all the time, that is a big part of it. The doctors that have been shut down, it's because of some of the differences in the states, and there are big differences. However, some of these docs, I think, have kind of used this to take they were afraid. They didn't think that if they continued marketing, they would get anybody.
Right.
Versus the practices that said, holy cow, a lot of corporations have turned off their marketing. So now what I'm paying per impression or paying per click
Yep.
is at its all-time most affordable place.
Yep.
So I'm actually going to pump more dollars into my marketing and using 2 funnels, a re-engagement funnel of their own people to keep them close, to educate them through Facebook Lives, through webinars, through opportunities to share with them the processes that they're doing within the practice to protect them, to bring in the elderly first thing in the morning when everything's disinfected, bring families in the afternoon, when you're not as you don't have the high risk people in the practice.
Mm-hmm.
And then using that time for new patients and I saw a lot, a couple weeks ago, the hot thing was this telemedicine. A lot of people have tried to implement that. And there has been some success with that. The early adopters of that. And then those who are finding ways to bring in new patients and safely process them, and then providing a unique path that's affordable. Like, you're unsure right now, so let's not present to you some huge care plan.
Right.
Let's talk about how we can help you deal with the stress for these next 6 weeks. And then in 6 weeks, we're going to look at more of a comprehensive plan.
Right.
And so by taking advantage of that, those practices that have implemented those steps have done pretty darn well.
Yeah. You mentioned marketing, and honestly, like, I feel like most of them, it's like, they're not doing marketing though. Like, they're doing sales. They, like, everybody, maybe not your guys, but like the majority of chiropractors, they're running coupons on Facebook. You're like, it's Groupon just on Facebook instead of Groupon.com. This is the opportunity of a lifetime to be able to market. And marketing means getting your message out there, educating, being a leader. And it's like, you have to spend money on that stuff so that people can see it. But the message needs to be what people are looking to hear right now. A $21 new patient special, you know, it doesn't help anybody if they're scared to leave their house.
No.
Right. But what does help is, how can you strengthen the host? How can you make somebody healthier? How can you give them tips that's gonna help them feel better about what's going on out there? Because there's a lot of people that are scared. There's a lot of people that have like, we as chiropractors are all like, well, it's just comorbidities that are dying. Well, everybody has comorbidities is the problem.
Yeah.
And so it's like, if you are diabetic, you're probably a little bit worried, you know?
Yeah. Or asthma or
asthma or heart disease or all of that.
Yeah, they're not connecting with their ideal patient. And this is, again, if you're not using leverage media, pull your head out and use Nick, because he's so gifted at helping pull your story out of you. And there's marketing metrics and there's sales metrics.
Right.
And this is where our profession doesn't get this.
That's right.
And this is why BlueIQ solves this. It helps you identify your marketing metrics, helps you understand the conversion of marketing to sales. What are your success markers around sales, and then conversion into established patients. So when you understand those metrics and the metrics of success, you start looking at your marketing very differently. You start looking at working with somebody like Nick, who can say, hey, Nick, this is what I need to produce. This is what I need. Help me get that. Well, Nick can step back for a minute and say, great, to get there, we've got to create a mind shift of a community. And to create a mind shift of a community, that doesn't happen on a Facebook coupon.
Right.
That happens in telling the story.
Yeah.
And that's what Nick does with video, is he helps you tell your story and start to change people's perspective and poise you as the expert, right, of the immune system. And when you start getting marketing out like that, you don't need some, stupid offer of $21 that just pulls our profession down. You can start building value. You can start attracting the quality of new patients that you deserve to treat as a doctor of chiropractic.
I didn't realize that I was the guest on the podcast. This is great. This is why I had you on. I'll get you your check after we're done. So let's talk a little bit about the numbers. You said, kind of in terms of patient visits, you're seeing that the profession overall is down 60% from January, you said, or February?
So we ran the numbers on February, March, and April. So obviously April's just closing out here. So there's a little discrepancy on those numbers. Yeah. But, on average, when we look at our profession overall, the drop has gone in just office visits. Now, office visits got hit hard in early April and started to come back up. We're seeing the office numbers already starting to come up just this week, a little bit better last week, but kind of bottomed out about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So we're already seeing a sense of that that rebuilding. What we measure as success of your treatment team, our golden metric for success isn't collections. Like, chiropractors are so focused on collections, which is important, but adjusted production is what drives collections. So we measure that adjusted production. For that adjusted production, we saw again about a 13% drop from February to March, but then from March to April is when we saw the 60% drop.
Got it.
So obviously,
it's actually from like February to April. Are you saying that that's like a 73%? Like, it's added on top, or it's like a little bit of, it's only like a 50% total from like February to April?
No, your perception's right. So from February to April, we're about 70%.
Got it.
So it took about a 13% drop and then another 60% drop.
I got it. But that 60 isn't like added on top of the 13. It's more of like, because the number was lower, the 60% was bigger. Yeah. Anyway, I think we've got it. So basically 70% down from February is where the April numbers, because really like, it seems like the middle of March was the kind of tipping point for the nation as a whole, where people were just like, that's when masks were starting to get worn and tables were having to be wiped down and offices were closing. So February was probably still a pretty pure sample. Yeah. And then April has been, bad.
April's the hardest hit, end of March. The first 2 weeks of March were not bad. We didn't see huge drops but definitely the last week of March was hit pretty hard. And then that first 2 weeks in April was crushing. Yeah. The third week of April, we started to figure things out. And now the fourth week of April, we're starting to see things come back up.
What's been the, like this week or maybe last week, what's been like the uptick from kind of bottoming out?
So we're seeing in production coming up about 15%. We're seeing new patients come up about 10 collections. Surprisingly enough, and I don't know, we were kind of talking about this data and we didn't have enough time to break it down because a lot of people are getting personal injury money coming in that were cases that I think the attorneys freaked out and were like, let's get these settled because we need the money.
Right.
But we actually saw personal injury money spike.
Yeah, that's what I thought was going to happen.
Which actually helped with the collections not drop as much. It didn't have quite the 60% drop. We only saw about a 50% drop overall in collections, but that has come back up about 14%. So we're definitely seeing some positive trends.
Yeah. What happened with new patients? Did new patients kind of follow the same trend line as visits, or was it even worse? Because I was thinking that new patients would probably be even worse than office visits.
Yeah, it was a lot worse. In fact, there was almost an 80% drop in new patients from February to April.
Wow.
Yeah. And then just again, in the last week and a half, we've seen just a little bit of bump coming back up in the new patients, but that still is lagging behind office visits and production.
I could see new patients like lagging quite a bit behind office visits, because the office visits are the already converted, the people who understand this stuff. They're looking, like, patients are calling in, can I get in? Can I get in? Can I get in? Right. Whereas new patients, now you're having to convince someone that they need to do this new thing that they've never done before, and that it's safe, and they just might have, like, they've already got preconceived notions about chiropractic. Right. They may have even more on top of that now with this. So I would imagine that now is the time to really, like, pour in to reactivations, to talk about some of those missed opportunities that you're talking about, where it's like people just kind of like drift out. Not that they didn't like the office, didn't like the care. It's just they got busy, and you have bad systems for, reactivating people. Now's the time to be reaching back out to those people.
Yeah, no question. And again, continue to educate your population base. Yeah. And help them understand your processes to keep them safe, which I think most people are doing. I've seen so many people jumping on their Facebook Lives and speaking to their community, which is fantastic. And what's interesting, Nick, is we work on we serve a pretty wide variety of chiropractors, those that are still very pure chiropractic, all the way up to those who are big into nutrition, all the way up to those who are integrated and actually have a nurse practitioner or a medical provider. Mm-hmm. So I've seen these campaigns that they're pushing out from, chiropractic boosts the immune system, to here's the diet that you should be on, to how to handle the stress through meditation and exercise, all the way up to here's some services that our medical team provides, whether that's immune boosting IVs, vitamin injections, all sorts of things. So those who had integrated practices had a bigger overhead. So they were hit pretty hard because of that, especially if they didn't get their PPP money. But they were able to sustain some of it, a reduced schedule with their medical provider, through promoting some of those immune services. And that's definitely helped.
Yeah. Well, your practice is huge, and you've got all kinds of different stuff going on. What was your guys's experience through all this?
Yeah, so my business partner is amazing. He's been able to stay at the helm of that. He runs those day-to-day operations as I've stepped out. But it's a big practice, right? We have
Yeah.
5 providers, everything from functional medicine to a DPT, right, doctor of physical therapy, to our
Yeah.
chiropractors, to our regenerative medicine doctor, to our massage whole center had to shut down, obviously, for
Yeah.
I think everybody's did. So anyway, we've been really lucky with some of our providers being able to do a lot of the, technology like this, still being
Mm-hmm.
able to do consultations with patients that we've been able to bill for, and then still have a pretty decent, patient flow of patients coming in, and again, just using proper education, proper care, still down about 40%. So we're about 60% capacity, but they've still been able to serve the patient base. And again, really focusing on the immune system, what stress does, how it affects the immune system, the nutrition that you need, a tremendous amount of education, and using the time that they're not seeing patients to be on creating education and delivering education through platforms like this. That's
Yeah.
been the greatest gift during this time.
Yeah. Well, I have, like you said, with, any problem comes opportunity. And I have never been more proud of my profession, seeing this much content being created than over the last 4 to 6 weeks.
Right.
I mean, I've been pulling my hair out trying to get people to create content when things were normal, but now it's like they're realizing that this is the way that they're going to have to communicate with their communities. And once they got over the fear of it, it's just like your grandparents that are now okay with Zoom.
Yeah.
It's like, once you actually do it, you're like, oh, wait a second, this isn't that bad.
Yeah.
Like, all I have to do is talk to the camera, and my life doesn't melt down around me.
Yeah.
Like, I can do this more, and so it's like people are getting into the habit of it, which is great. Now it's like, okay, how can we maximize that? How can we get that out to more people other than the people who already listen to you?
Yeah, dude. I mean, I agree with you. And I still remember the first day I hit go live and how freaked out I was. This was several years ago. But it's anxious. And we're dealing with a lot of these providers that are over 50, right?
Sure.
We're almost there, but not quite yet. But it's that generation that have, how do we reinvent ourselves? How do we do this? The younger Chiros, man, they're just on. They're not, it's not even a thing.
Yeah.
But one of the things that, again, we teach in our systems that you're a part of is this 6 lead funnels in your marketing system that you have to have balanced.
Yeah.
And one of those lead funnels is what we call your trusted provider network. And this is an amazing opportunity to connect with your trusted provider network. That is 12 people in your community, 12 providers or like businesses that you should have a relationship with.
Yeah.
And each month you should be doing what Nick's doing with me. You should be getting on, you should be, interviewing, talking to each other, and promoting that to both of your patient bases. Because if you took this opportunity to get on and do a Facebook Live with one of your, holistic dentist, a functional medicine doctor, a primary care physician, somebody that you connect with, that you share a patient base with, that you have a relationship with, because it does take a relationship.
Sure.
And you were able to get on and talk about this hot topic of COVID and what each facility does to service their patient base.
Yep.
You can learn so much. You get exposed to their patient base. You're exposing them to your patient base. You're talking about collaboration. It builds trust, because that's what our community wants. They want doctors who work together, not who think that they have all the answers.
Exactly. No, I think that's such a great way. It's such an easy way to have a podcast when you just do the Facebook Lives and then just strip the audio. Like, this will be a podcast episode. This will be a Facebook Live. We'll chop up pieces that we think are important into 2-minute clips and boost those out. And it's such a great way, because if somebody trusts Cory and we seem like we get along, and you trust me and I trust you, well, now if somebody likes Cory, now they're like, well, if Cory likes him, he must be an all right guy, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And it's, chiropractic is a lot like a small town. There's 70,000 of us ish. And, my town has 100,000 people in it. And that's about like, it's just a little bit more difficult to reach chiropractors than it is to just, draw a radius around my practice and pump out content.
Yeah.
But, you're only trying to influence so many people. It's not that hard when you're a local brick and mortar to just get that stuff out to people that live in your area. But again, you've got to think in that story brand mindset, like, what is it that my ideal patients want to hear? And then like Grant Cardone says, who's got my money? Like, who's got my patients? Who already has those people, whether it's a boutique clothing store, a holistic dentist, a yoga studio, a CrossFit gym.
Yeah.
This is the time, because everybody's just sitting around wondering what they should be doing. So if you give them an idea of what they should be doing, they're most likely to say yes.
Dude, do it. I mean, the most valuable thing you can do right now, I think Russell Brunson said it, and I'm sure he got it from somebody else, but your ideal new patient is not so easily defined by an age, by a demographic, it's a mindset, right?
Yes.
We serve a mindset group of people, and we're trying to convert people to that mindset.
Yep.
So let's make people, right, our disciples by going out and helping convert them, but they hang out in places. And this is just an example. I'll just share this real quickly. But, we had one of our providers getting certified as a functional medicine doctor, and he's an actual chiropractor. So he went to one of the biggest functional medicine certification brands out there. And he's talking to the two founders who are medical doctors. And the medical doctors are like, oh, you're a chiro. We love chiros. He's like, when we started this a few years ago, we started hosting these events, these educational events, and we were marketing like crazy to our medical doctors.
Yeah.
And nobody was showing up. Mm-hmm. And so we broadened our marketing to just any provider, and chiropractors started showing up. And we were just like, why are we attracting chiropractors? And he said to this doctor, he's like, this blew my mind that chiropractors were already thinking the way that we thought we had discovered this whole new way of treating a patient holistically,
right.
looking for the root cause rather than treating them with symptoms with medication.
Yeah.
And he's like, when I figured out that chiropractors already had this mindset, and that trying to convert a traditional medical doctor to this mindset was so hard, it was just easier to look for provider, right? They found a mindset, and all of a sudden they blew up in their certification process. Yeah. That is the same concept. You're out there throwing your marketing, this huge net. Instead, find out where people with this mindset already hang out. And that is the yoga studios. That is the functional medicine. That is the holistic dental office. That is these 12 trusted provider networks that you should be building in your community. Absolutely. And why we teach and preach that like crazy.
That's great. So I do want to talk a little bit about about BlueIQ itself. I know we've kind of like alluded to it throughout the interview, but I just want to say that I'll just never like practice without it, especially as someone who, people are always asking me, they're always interested in like, well, Nick, how do you run a practice from Chicago if your practice is in Springfield? Like, one of the ways that I do that is through looking at data. When I was in Springfield, so I stopped seeing patients in 2011, and I moved to Chicago in 2017. And so for those 6 years, I was in the practice every day. And so when I was in the practice, I had a real like sense of what was going on. The real weakness I had when I was in the practice was I would get too like attached and too emotional to things because it was like my baby and I was there and blah, blah, blah. Now being in Chicago, it's like I run the thing off of data. I don't know the names of these people that are coming in. The individual situations don't really matter anymore. What matters is the trends. What matters is what's this compared to last year. And it makes it so easy to be able, and I know that you guys, work mainly with ChiroTouch right now, but that you're opening it up to other EHR systems. But as soon as they connect with your EHR, you need to hop on it. Because regardless of whether you're the doctor that sees all the patients, or if you live in a different city and you're managing from afar, you need to know what the data is, and you need it to be easy. The reason why people don't create content, Cory, is friction. I finally I heard Gary say it a few weeks ago, and it finally clicked with me. It's the friction of either, what should I say? One of three things. What should I be talking about? How do I technically like do it? How do I package it? How do I boost it out? Whatever. And then the third is the strategy. And what we try to do is take away that friction, and we just say, listen, you just create the content, we'll do all the rest, right? What BlueIQ does is it takes away the friction of accumulating data. It takes away the friction of looking at things across different categories. You can create whatever you want. And I cannot, every time I talk to you, I feel like I spend half the time just like singing the praises of BlueIQ instead of like asking you questions and getting value. But every time I talk to somebody, I'm like, dude, if you don't have BlueIQ, you're an idiot. And there's no financial gain for me in saying this. Like I've told you this before, like I want no affiliate commission. I want people to know what it is that they're doing. And you guys make it so easy. You guys think about stuff like ways the data goes together that I would never think of. That's like, oh, this is the way that you can see if somebody stopped within the first 6 months or the first year. It's so helpful. And so what is it that for people that are interested in finding out more about it, I know you talked about an offer and now I can't even remember what that was now at the end, but tell me how people can find out more about BlueIQ and how you can help them.
No, I appreciate that, because the reality is our profession's changing, Nick. I mean, it's crazy when you look at the difference in insurance reimbursements and what they've done over the last few years. And that's part of stuff that we're analyzing. You look at the stagnicity of our population utilization, and it's still stuck. We're not seeing spikes in utilization of chiropractic like we should be. And that's a conversation that's been going on since I was a kid. So how do we help chiropractors create more impact, right? That's my number one mission. And then make a really good living doing it. I've seen the wide gamut of these chiropractors that can't even keep their doors open, and they're phenomenal chiropractors, but they don't know how to make money doing chiropractic. So there's really three types of chiropractors that we serve. There's those who already get data analysis. I discovered it very early out of school because, again, business was my background. I was dying to crack this nut very early. I got into data analysis, and like many of you, in fact, we just talked to a guy who's still doing this. It blew my mind. They're charting and putting the charts on walls, Nick. They're still doing this. But they're analyzing some data. Then there's those guys who are doing it in spreadsheets. They built some pretty complicated spreadsheets out there to track data. But there's that population who get it, right? They know that they need to track data. They're tracking it on some method. We just completely save them like 5 hours a week in trying to capture that data. We just bring it in. So there's that population. Then there's a population that they know they should analyze their data. They have kind of look at their reports. They're spending all this time pulling those reports out of our patient management system, but they're not really making great decisions with it because they're not quite sure how to interpret it. They can't see it in trends, like you mentioned. They can't overlay it and compare it, and it's not combing through the data to tell you what you should be doing every day like BlueIQ does. So they're looking at reports, but they're not really making great decisions with it. And then there's the other ones that are literally still blind. They don't know what reports to pull. They don't know how to analyze them. They don't have any data, method that they're pulling them. So they're just running their practice on gut. We feel busy, so therefore we're successful.
Right.
We have some new patients coming in. I have a little bit of money in the bank account, so I'm good. And one of the worst things that I hear from our brothers and sisters is that they say, oh, I don't market. I don't need to market. I consistently get a few new patients a week.
Sure.
Shame on you for not impacting your community at a higher level. Because if you're that successful without marketing, imagine what you could be with some marketing. So those are the three types that we see. So we have programs for all three of those. And one of the cool opportunities that we're offering is if you have ChiroTouch right now, is that we will connect into your data, we'll pull it up in the cloud, we'll run it through our analysis and show you how you did last year, both in what you hit but also what you missed out on.
Yeah.
And this is what's so powerful about this analysis. We will show you in real dollars what you left on the table. Shame on you. And then we'll show you how you were doing pre-COVID, and then we'll create a blueprint with you, with your own data of how to recover coming out of COVID. And you can sign up for that at it's 𝗏𝗏𝗰𝗀.com/LVRG, right? Just your media group.
Yeah.
So that's 𝗏𝗏𝗰𝗀.com/LVRG. So BlueIQ Chiro is where there's a bunch of testimonials, and you will have some of those so that you can see people have done it, been doing it for quite a while now. And then for those of you who have never experienced data, like you don't even know where to start with your own data, we've got a program for you that we've got over 20 hours of training for you of how to actually run your practice with data, like what Nick learned years ago and what's made him so successful. That course content you go through, you're part of a weekly coaching call that helps you with data implementation. And the secret behind it is 4 key meetings that we teach you to implement into your practice around data and to turn your own team members into data doers. Like they see the data and they know what to do. They come to your meetings with strategy, not excuses. They solve problems for you, not waiting for you to solve all the problems. I mean, that's what creates part of our provider burnout, is we're solving patients' problems and we're solving our team's problems. And then we go home and try to solve our family's problems. No wonder why we're, on average 12 years before you start to hit burnout in our profession. So.
Well, that's awesome, man. I really appreciate you putting all this stuff together. Like, I always love that you're really good at like just getting stuff down. Like you'll do it one time, but then you have it there forever. I'm bad about that, of not like capturing it and putting it in a nice package. Yeah. And man, I could not recommend Cory's training enough. Like, I've been in his coaching group for a little over a year now. And I just think it is so valuable to doctors to really hear. He just has a different way. I think a lot of coaches in the profession are very rah-rah and emotional. And the thing I always like about you is that you're so like data-driven. Cold is the wrong word, but it is just like straightforward. And I appreciate that, because I'm that way, And so if you are that way, this is definitely the information for you. And it's just such a great way to be able to use what you're already doing and use that data to help you identify where your strengths and weaknesses are. So, Cory, I always appreciate having you on. I appreciate what you're doing for the profession. Hopefully when all of this has gotten in the rearview mirror, I'll be fascinated to like look back with you and see like what the trends look like and show some data if we can to the audience, because I know everybody's kind of fascinated because we're all in our own little thing. Right. But to be able to look over 1,000 offices and see what everybody else has been doing.
We'll do this again, and we'll run some numbers in this next quarter and watch the trends. We'll be able to see it. We'll put together some reports we can send out to the profession. It'll be pretty fun.
Hopefully the next few quarters is a trajectory that's straight up, though, because I'm hoping that chiropractors step into this opportunity that has been given to us.
Yeah. And again, just to reiterate to those listening, if you want to become a more profitable, more impactful practice coming out of this, then use this time to just implement these systems, because it's what makes all the difference in the world. Our average client, Nick, is seeing an increase in their profits with not hiring more team members, not spending more money, just taking advantage of making these better decisions with their data by 20 up to 200% increase in revenues.
Wow.
Yeah,
well, if there's no better way to end it on 200% increase in revenues. So again, if you're not using BlueIQ, if you know about BlueIQ and you're not using it, I think you're an idiot. If you don't know about BlueIQ, then now you do. So if you don't use it, now you're an idiot.
I'm the cold guy.
All right, Cory, awesome. Dude, I appreciate it. Can't wait to see you in person again, and we'll have you back on when we get back on the other side of this. And guys, we will see you on the next one.
Love you, brother. Thanks for having me.